Lao Cha Tou, old tea head. What's that all about? Hey everyone, this is Sigi, and I love all things pu'er. Today, as you might be able to see from the setup I've got here, I am back with another comparison video. We've got two new teas on the nannuoshan store, these two right here, which are both so-called Lao Cha Tou, or old tea head. Now, what's that all about? Before I begin to tell you what it is, I am just gonna fill these with water because they take a little bit to get done. So, Lao Cha Tou. I'm just gonna do a rinse before we start. Lao Cha Tou are these sometimes smaller, sometimes larger nuggets that form during the production of pu'er, as tea leaves and all of the stuff that's fermenting kind of congeals together to form a solid bit of tea that sticks together. And that is also the reason why I already started the rinse, because these little things here, let me see if you can see them that way. These small nuggets take forever to come apart. And a lot of the time, if you talk to other people about Lao Cha Tou, which, as we've just learned, is a type of pu'er, or could be considered as such, is their longevity. They stick together so much that you can essentially brew them forever and ever and ever, and they just keep on giving. So that's what we're going to try today, and that's why I already started, because these are going to take a while, and we can do really, really long steeps with these. So that's what I'm going to do. And I've got two of them here, both new on the nannuoshan shop. So as this first steep is going, I'm going to tell you a bit about what I know about these teas. So the first tea, the one in the back here, is a Lao Cha Tou from 2020. And I was a bit surprised because it is really affordable, actually. It's €9 for 50 grams. And I'm very curious to see if that perhaps makes it a good deal, especially considering that these tend to go for a lot of steeps. So if you're looking for a kind of comfortable tea that you can really keep drinking throughout the day, maybe this might be a good option for you. Now, the other one I have here is a bit more special or interesting, maybe. This is actually Lao Cha Tou made from gushu material. It's produced by the same producer that also makes the Cloud Mountain Hongcha, that is a bit of a star on this YouTube channel now, and honestly, for good reason. I myself also really like it. I'm already going through my second box of it right now. The price for this one, given the quality of the material, is a little bit higher, but honestly not by that much. It's €15 for 50 grams, or if you buy a full 250 gram box, it's, I think, €56. So, quite frankly, a very reasonable price for what's hopefully going to be good material. Okay, let's take a quick look at these. So I'm not sure how visible it is on camera. I'm gonna try to move things around a little bit in here, but basically like these little tea nuggets are still sticking together. That's how strong they are. Even though they've been in there for quite a while and the liquor is already quite dark, these things are just not coming apart. And I think even by the time we finish this video, no matter how kind of intense I steep these, they're still gonna stay together. Like we are talking oftentimes north of like 20 steeps for these types of Lao Cha Tou. But at the end of the day, it doesn't just matter how long they go, it also matters how they taste. So I'm just gonna pour these two in, see if we can see any similarities or differences. First off, I'm gonna give both a quick smell. Feels like decently strong fermentation on this one, but I'd say the predominant kind of note you get is woodiness. These don't smell too sweet. I've often had Lao Cha Tou before that were just quite sweet. These ones, just from the smell, not as much. Let's see what these ones are like in comparison. Ooh. Yeah, these seem a fair bit sweeter, and they've got an almost kind of alcoholic note to them. It's hard to describe. As a reminder, 2020, 2017. Let's look at the liquor color for both. So this is the more affordable one, and this is the Gushu one. I'm not sure if you can see much of a difference on camera, but the more affordable one looks a fair bit darker and maybe a tiny bit less transparent than the Gushu one. A bit more opaque, maybe. But I'm very keen to give these a try. Just going by what I saw here, I'm going to try the Gushu one first, as it seems to have slightly lighter fermentation. Oh, and before I forget, I'm just going to put in some water right now so we can get a nice and long second steep. Due to how long I'm keeping these steeps, there's also a good chance we are not going to be able to do more than 2 in this video. But honestly, 2 should be enough to tell us everything we need to know. Lao Cha Tou is the kind of tea that tends to stay very consistent across steeps. And the largest change you notice when drinking it is probably when it eventually ends up coming apart, and then it's kind of like it receives a second wind because you get to all of the stuff that's been locked inside. But that is like many steeps down the line. We are not going to reach that point today. However, if you're somebody who enjoys drinking shu, then I think even before trying these Lao Cha Tou, getting these might be fun. And if you do end up getting one of them, please leave a comment and tell me whether you experienced that kind of second wind as you drank through a full session with these Lao Cha Tou. Wait. Wait a second. This? Oh, this is unusual. There is a bit of it, but the first impression I got when I started drinking just now was that this does not taste like shoe pu'er. It's honestly quite amazing. Like, either the fermentation on this one is super, super light, or it's just that the tea hasn't come apart at all yet. But this is gentle and mellow in a way that I really wouldn't have expected here. And it honestly tastes really nice. You can almost kind of sense a similarity to the Cloud Mountain, but not directly, kind of in a more abstract way. I wouldn't be surprised if the base material used for both of these teas was at least related to each other in some way. Okay, but before I just keep drinking this one, because honestly it is very good drinking so far, let me try the other one, the 2020 Lao Cha Tou. Also quite gentle, but definitely more of that fermentation flavor. It's nowhere near getting to the point of being uncomfortable, which, if you're somebody who prefers lighter shu or a generally shu pu'er with less fermentation flavor, I think Lao Cha Tou is a good option for you, because rather than kind of releasing all of that flavor all at once, it is slowly being released over many, many steeps. So the overall impression you get is that there is much less of it going on. And it doesn't, dominate the tea as much as it would with regular shu pu'er. So yeah, this one, honestly, also very positive first impression. Though I must admit, when directly comparing these two, this one has piqued my personal curiosity a little bit more. It's honestly, I'm a little bit shocked by how much I like this. Like, I'm really not much of a shu pu'er drinker. Both you and I probably know that, but this is something. Yeah, just nothing unpleasant at all. Pleasant flavors, pleasant mouthfeel as well, which, given how like light this steep was, which I know might sound a bit ridiculous in context, or out of context, maybe, sorry. Uh, yeah, this is good. Damn. Yeah. This, if the second steep of this tea remains as good as this first one was, I'm honestly gonna consider buying some of it for myself. This one, though, just as well, pleasant. It tastes a little bit sweeter than it smelled, but you do still get a fairly prominent kind of sense of woodiness. Nice tea overall. A little bit of creamy mouthfeel at the end as well. Okay, this one I think already looks a little bit darker. The second steep. It was also a pretty long steep, not gonna lie. Let's see number 2. On this one, we are gonna do another color comparison, just to see if things have changed in that regard. So here they are. I'd say both definitely darker than on the first steep. This one is deep red. This one also quite red, but still lighter. So I do think at this point we can say that the fermentation on the Gushu Lao Cha Tou was lighter, and that was also reflected in the flavor of the first steep. All right. I'm especially curious to see how, now that these teas are looking a bit darker, the fermentation flavor perhaps changes a bit, or the amount in which it's present. Mm. Hard to say from just the first sip, especially because it's still quite hot. But it's definitely not as uncanny as the first steep, if you want to put it that way. It definitely tastes more like pu'er now, but still not in an overbearing way. It integrates quite nicely so far. Although I will say that a little bit of that kind of lightness of the first steep has been lost. It is moving closer towards standard, if you want to call it that way, pu'er now. But still, like, the fermentation flavor of this is still not getting in the way of what else is there. It's not kind of domineering at all. I think this tea strikes a very nice balance between fermentation and other flavors, while also providing a pleasant mouthfeel and ample sweetness. Let's see how this one does in comparison. Let's see if this one also ramps up the fermentation flavor now after this long second steep. Oh yeah, definitely. This is quite pu'er-like now. Woodiness is still there, still strong, but it is complemented by a also significantly stronger fermentation flavor now. Still not the sweetest overall, I'd say. I think this one is still a bit sweeter, though to some extent that might also be a function of how light or heavy these teas are. I think this being a significantly heavier tea kind of would mean that it would require more sweetness overall for it to be as noticeable as it is in this lighter Lao Cha Tou. Okay, so I'm just gonna finish the second steep here on camera. And then I'm not gonna do a third one because then we'd be here for another 10-ish minutes. And I do want to try to not make these videos too long. My impression of these two so far is this one in the back is a bit more robust, stronger for sure, less sweet, but still kind of interesting flavors going on. The fermentation and the woodiness are playing with each other in an interesting way, and it produces a pleasant mouthfeel with a bit of creaminess overall. This one here in the front is lighter, perhaps more enjoyable for people who don't drink fermented tea as much in general. It's got more sweetness, or it feels sweeter, and due to the lighter fermentation, you also get some kind of higher feeling fragrances. Definitely a lighter experience overall. The mouthfeel is also different. Like this one, I wouldn't describe as creamy at all, whereas this one is. This one feels a little bit more. It's hard to find the right word, but compared to this one, I'd say this one is denser, this one is airier in a way. It just feels lighter on the tongue overall, which makes for a very pleasant drinking experience. I think if you've if you either already have experience with fermented teas or if you don't and you're curious to try one out, this one would be good because then it will either provide a contrast to the other fermented teas you've already had, or it will provide a good entry into fermented teas by not kind of overwhelming you with fermentation flavor. Now, if you're already a seasoned shoe drinker and you get a bit bored with how kind of generically sweet some shoe pu'er seem to be, I think this one will provide a nice contrast to that. It really isn't very sweet, but it takes some other fragrances that you sometimes find in shoe pu'er. Like woodiness isn't the most common thing to experience, and it creates an interesting impression overall. As I finish this cup, of course, as always, if you like me doing these reviews and all the other kinds of videos I'm doing on the nannuoshan channel, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, share this with other friends you might have that are into tea, and let's enjoy some Lao Cha Tou together. Because yeah, ultimately I'd say I enjoyed both of these teas. They are quite different. Summarizing once again, this one, more robust, denser, heavier, less sweet, woody. This one, light, airy, low fermentation flavor, higher notes, interesting change from the norm, if you will. I think both of them are worth their money in their own right, and I do recommend giving both a try. And with that, this is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.